Ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to welcome Captain Gopaji Nagra into our show this afternoon. Gopaji, a big warm welcome to you from London. It's probably about 9:30 in the night for you, so I really value your taking the time out to meet with us this evening. Um, First, let me invite you to give a little introduction about your own self. I mean, Captain Gopaji Nagra is known to me and to others, but tell us about who's really Gopaji that grew up in Chandigarh. What is this person, Gopaji? Who is she?
Firstly, thank you for inviting me to your show, and really happy to be part of your journey as you have been part of my journey now since 1988. Uh, Going back to your question at who's Gopaji, Gopaji was a tomboy, and I think is still a tomboy. Very hard for me to match up to the grace of my mom. She's extremely graceful, extremely poised, and I'm still a tomboy. I still get told off what to wear for family functions. So I have grown up climbing walls, climbing trees. I have climbing to the roof of the house without a ladder. So that's my growing up. And it was fairly unrestrained. My parents supported whatever path I wanted to take. Their aim was to make me and my sister, my elder sister, independent so we can look after ourselves and we can rely on our own ability, our own capabilities to make our choices for our lives. So, good, bad, or ugly, they supported our paths.
Perfect. No, Gopaji, you know the show that we are on is called as True Grit. It's the story of resilience. It's the story of inspiration. It's the story of people who are very ordinary in terms of their backgrounds, who are very ordinary in terms of what they did from an education standpoint, and they are people who are just like anybody on in a regular kind of a role in society, but have ended up doing something really extraordinary in their own sphere, different, breaking the mold, doing something which one wouldn't really kind of consider that kind of a profile, kind of doing that a role of the kind that they ended up doing in their careers, and also now as they are progressing through their lives, which is very enriching not only for themselves but also for society as a whole and for their own immediate family members. So I can see the tomboy in you, and that takes me down in the show to a question about what you did in your career. But before we get to that important point, you were a girl from Chandigarh. Chandigarh is a fairly modern society, but back in the early 80s and into the mid 80s, it was still a little conservative. And it wasn't that, it was easy for a girl out of Punjab, Chandigarh, to kind of say, hey, I'm going to go do something different. I know you went to college in Chandigarh. Talk about your journey from school into college in Chandigarh, and then we'll talk about college to beyond what you did and where I got to meet you, and we will talk. I've spent some time on that conversation as well. Tell us about your journey from school to college in Chandigarh.
So I completed my schooling, that is up till 10th ICSE from Carmel Convent School, Chandigarh. And I went on to do my prep medical from Meherchand Mahajan DAV College for Girls, which is called MCM DAV, with the idea of becoming a doctor. But I think 1 year of prep medical made me decide I can't do pre med and medical thereafter. So I then went on to do BSc in home science from Chandigarh. So that was my graduation.
Beautiful.
Again, it was a very varied experience because there were so many different subjects which we covered, from clothing and textiles to foods and nutrition to child development and psychology, biochemistry, home economics. It was quite a capsule of the world, and in olden days perhaps considered as a qualification to be a good housewife and to be domesticated. But by the time I joined Home Science College, it had given a very strong background, especially in the psychology department and clothes and textiles. And the choices thereafter were so vast that, again, it was difficult to pinpoint and narrow down on what would be the next step, whether it would be going in for a master's in one of the core subjects, or it would be diversifying out into something else. Nutrition and dietetics, as I said, foods and nutrition and dietetics, they were again up and coming fields at that time, but nobody knew what the future would be, because we did not have many dietitians at that time, and nobody followed the concept of dieting. It
Right.
was
Not in Punjab, at least. Not in
yeah,
Punjab, at least.
of your ash karo, have your aloo paranthas, have your golgappas, chana bhaturas, and carry on with life. So even if I did think of becoming a dietitian, I could not see what the future career prospects would be in that. So that then took me on to another choice, which got me to a very memorable part of my life, which is still continuing.
And before we touch upon that journey that you and I were together on for 3+ years and beyond, you made a very important point when you mentioned about your decision to take on home sciences, because somewhere in India, deep down, you touched upon it. It was always that girls will do home sciences. It prepares them for becoming a good housewife. It was like, that interview that happened with the in-laws. They would ask,
Yeah,
what have she studied? And you said home sciences, and it was like, yeah, nod your head. But
yeah,
strangely enough, that is how the society had kind of looked at least when girls came to the point where what more to do. Of course, there was a mold being broken, but usually it was kind of taken as a safe thing that you come to a marriageable age. If you've done home sciences, parents would find a good boy for you and you'll go settle down. And that could have been a
yeah,
possibility for you as well. But he said, no, I'm not
yeah,
going in that direction.
yeah, true. Because well, the choices ahead of me at that time, after I completed my schooling, were become a doctor or then become a teacher, which I had bugged my teachers long enough in school to know that I don't want to be on the receiving end.
Right.
When I was choosing what I want to study, my first thought was I don't want to become a teacher
Hmm.
somehow.
Hmm.
And the selling point of doing your B.Ed or bachelor's in education was that you'll get holidays along with the kids, you'll have a lot of holidays, you'll have a very settled life, and that somehow it wasn't at
Your cup of
that
tea.
point of time my cup of tea.
It
No.
wasn't your cup of tea. And knowing the little that I know about you for about 32 years, 33 years, that
Yeah,
wasn't your cup of tea.
no. And during school, I was always involved in camps. For example, I started with Bulbuls, then I went on to Girl Guides, and Girl Guides also, then I became a President Guide. And there was an option for me to carry on with the Duke of Edinburgh Award, but way back in 1984, it was quite unheard of to allow somebody to travel to England just to do a Duke of Edinburgh Award.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
I, I was a
yeah,
part of it as
so
well.
I
I was
think,
part of it as well, of that Duke of Edinburgh thing, really out of Madras. I mean, KK and I, a friend of mine whom you probably will meet at some point in time, um, is an individual. We were both in this thing where could have gone the route from camps and MCC and all of that into Duke of Edinburgh award scheme. But you're right. It's strange that, there was this thing holding us back. Either it was the parental
yeah,
pressure, or sometimes it wasn't parental pressure, it was societal pressure. Parents were okay, but
yeah,
society was in a different. So
yeah,
talk to me about that.
yeah.
How did you
And then
what did you do there?
we had a lot of activities to do and earn badges, which was very interesting. We would have our camps within the school. We would also then look how to go out of the city for camps. So we actually, in school, we would pitch our tents and we would stay. Or then we would have a day camp where we would carry our cooking utensils to school and build a little fire, do our cooking over that.
Right.
and earn a little badges through that. And it did uh, it did teach you how to work as a team, teach you
Correct.
how to work towards a goal, and
Correct.
teach you that, okay, so you've not achieved your goal in X number of weeks, it doesn't matter. You can still achieve your goal, you can still work towards it.
Right.
Because there were various progressive badges where you earned certain number of badges and you were then promoted to the next level where you
Exactly.
certain other badges were opened up to you. So that's how
It,
then you went on to become a president's guide or a president's scout.
it was a
So
pyramid
which,
scheme. I mean, it was a kind of a pyramid scheme that if you earned,
yes,
you kind of moved up the ranks, and then you came to the pinnacle, which was
yes,
really going over to Scotland, to Edinburgh, and kind of,
yes,
spending time
yes.
there as a, yep. So, so where did you reach? You reached president's level, and then family held you back. Is that what it was, or was it other
No,
pressures? What came in the middle?
no. President's Guide then that completed along with my schooling.
Right, right, right. Then the
But
pressures changed. School out, college came
they,
in.
then college came in. So the memorable part again about the scouts and the guides interaction was the rivalry that we would face at the parade ground when we would go for the Independence Day and the Republic Day march pasts.
Hmm.
So there was a lot of preparation for the drill that used to take place in the school, where we had to beat our drum ourselves, we had to train our squad ourselves. And for quite a number of years, I would be leading our contingent for the school, for the parade. And even if I had fever, and my parents would say that no, you have to stay at home, and I would just insist. I said no, if I don't go, my squad will not get the first prize.
So this,
So even
I need to interrupt you here on this point, because this brings, you must have been 16 or 17 at that time, probably 15,
less,
16, somewhere.
yes,
Early teenage years. Early teenage
yeah,
years is when usually there's a desire to kind of be with friends, be out with boys if you're a girl, be out with girls if you're a boy, go for movies, go and hang around. How were you able to keep yourself out of that distraction and keep the focus on? Chandigarh was, by the way, still very open and happening when it came to younger crowds meeting together. It was far more advanced than most other cities in North India. So how did you escape that trap and that desire to focus on what you wanted to focus on?
well, I was in an all girls convent school,
Right, right. Mount Carmel.
and yeah, Carmel Convent. So the only way we could meet the guys was when we would have our camps together or at the
Right.
parade ground. But my parents had one very straight rule. They said if you want to meet a boy, he should be comfortable enough coming home to meet you and sit with you at home. We don't
Beautiful.
want to see you standing around under trees or hearing from other people we saw your daughter standing under a tree with XYZ guy and chatting. So you want to have friends amongst. We were not restricted in having
Beautiful.
friends as boys. I think that's why I never had a boyfriend, because uh, that temptation was taken away to do something behind the scenes.
Beautiful.
Yes.
The
Yeah.
concept itself in the mid 80s, to be comfortable having your daughter be able to meet with younger gentlemen or boys, of the teenage type, but saying, you know what, do it formally. There's nothing to be hidden about it. It's a
Yes.
great lesson that we kind of deploy now, but it wasn't the
Yeah.
norm back in those days. So
It
hats off to
wasn't.
your
It
parents
wasn't.
for
Yes,
that part of it.
definitely. And then we had amongst our neighbors, we had some young boys. And since all the families were friends, the society was much smaller. So we used to interact with them on a daily basis. So we never grew up in awe of boys. That, oh my, if I talk to a boy, how am I going to feel? Because we'd grown up with them. And then my father, being from the Indian Navy, so his friend circle, his course mates, they also had sons and daughters. So right from childhood, we were comfortable in growing up with boys.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
That brings us to the point where now you transition over to where I met you and we got to know each other. That was hotel management. What prompted
Yeah.
you from Chandigarh to come to hotel management? Although I can see the nutrition angle now, it was a part of your diet, course in home sciences, and there was some commonality, but hotel management was a little too on the right. And we had this whole thing around it ki waiter banoge, will you be a certified waiter, will you be a cook, will you be nobody understood what that was. How would you fight that battle and land up in a in hotel management? How did you do that? What is that journey all about?
So the motivation to join hotel management was, you can say, rather filmy, because those days Mills and Boons were very common books.
Yep,
Okay.
I remember Mills and Boons. I used to read a few from my older cousin, and I never understood what is this idea of a dark brown, handsome man and this girl swooning in his arms. I've read a few. I will not deny it. I've read a few Mills and Boons
Yeah.
myself.
So, but still, those were the days when we were not permitted openly to read them, so we had to hide and read them. They used to be hidden in the chemistry book or something, and we used to. So, somewhere in one of those books, I read about a young lady who had her own gourmet catering service with her van all set up, and she would do home catering, silver plated services,
Wow,
where she would cook, she would set up the table, she would serve for 6 to 8 people.
wow,
Of a VIP gourmet service.
wow.
So
And
that
this
is,
is in a Mills and Boons book. This
yes,
was in a Mills and Boons book.
in a Mills and Boons book.
Do you remember the title of that one? Because I'd
No,
really like to. No, you don't
no,
remember that
I
one.
don't
Okay.
remember the title, but that stayed with me, and I think that kindled my desire to do something more, because it is still one of my desires to have my own little niche catering service.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow. So that brought you into hotel management.
that brought me into hotel management.
That got you into the rigors of doing advanced training kitchen, basic training kitchen. Then we went into quantity food kitchen, and then we went into advanced
Advanced.
food kitchen, and we were going into bakery classes, etc. Ladies and gentlemen, we are talking to Gupaji Nagra, Captain Gupaji Nagra, a friend, a batchmate, and this is where I say a dear friend with whom I spent 3 years of my best life in catering college together at IHM Pusa. And for those of you who are liking what we are talking about, do visit us at inreel.com, because what we are exploring here is the journey of this lady who has, as you can see, come out of Chandigarh, a relatively smaller town in North India, a little bit conservative, not as much as other towns, but kind of chose to break the path, getting into breaking the mold. And while she did home sciences, it wasn't marriage. That's not where she was going. She said, I'm going to move in over and getting into hotel management. And we'll explore the next part of her journey, which is even more amazing. But now that we are on hotel management, what about hotel management did you like in the 3 years? And what was the best part of leaving college and getting into the next chapter of your life for about 6 or 7 years before a bigger chapter happened in your life? So let's touch upon what did you like in the 3 years that you were there in college.
Okay, so I will start with the relationships first of all. I had come from a convent school background. I'd studied in an all girls college, where though I had been given a lot of freedom and responsibility, and the teachers in college used to uh, uh, give a lot of weight to what I said and to my presence in certain situations. I was the class rep all through college,
Hmm.
and in my final year, I was to be the president of the college, but their president was more or less a rubber stamp, and they didn't have a suitable candidate for a sports captain.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
they put me into a sports captain role. So I was actually working as the president, as the de facto president, and the sports captain in
Hmm.
my previous college, in Government Home Science College, Chandigarh. So coming from that background, where the interaction was totally with girls, teachers were also all ladies, mostly ladies. 99% of the teachers in school and college were ladies. So when I stepped into hotel management, it was my first experience of a co-educational
True,
environment.
true.
But at this moment, I am most comfortable with the friends and the friendships and the relationships I have made at IHM Pusa than I am with any other core group of mine. So
Wow,
I
wow.
think when you say about 30 years, 33 years down the line, if there is one group of friends that picks me out of the lowest, darkest moments and just cheers me up in a moment, it is my Pusa family.
Wow. And so a couple of things that I picked up in what you just told me. Leadership comes naturally to you because
Yeah.
I see that you were able to carve your path while in school with the fact that you were leading the camps, you were working towards the Duke of Edinburgh award, and you had actually made it up to the president's level. That is a sign of leadership. And then even in home science college, you broke the mold because people would have been happy just attending class, going and having a good time in the evening, going to sector 15 or whatever where the hangouts in Chandigarh, and generally enjoying life in general. But you chose to dedicate yourself to a leadership path there again to get into being the college president as well as the sports captain. And it requires a lot of determination and grit to kind of forge ahead and try to bring a lot of young ladies who probably were also not as aligned, but you have to bring them together to say, can we make a play in, let us say, the sports side of representing ladies in an area. So were you playing hockey, or were you playing basketball, or were you playing volleyball? What really were you guys into? What kind of sports were you into?
So surprisingly, I didn't play sports in college. I
Ah,
was more involved in NCC.
okay.
So again, I was very prominent in NCC. So I think that developed my administrative abilities. It developed again leadership. People become a senior under officer in the third year of NCC after they've done their C certificate. I became a senior under officer when I completed my B certificate.
So that leadership quality you took into IHM Pusa as well. So how did you translate that learning from your school and home science college into Pusa, where of course you got exposed to a co-ed environment? There were men there, some of them aggressive, some of them kind of different mold than how you normally see, some of them completely off the charts. I wouldn't call myself amongst them. I was a very good guy, I'm sure you will attest to that. But jokes
Definitely.
apart, we are not yet going into that part of the conversation, but would like to know that you came into this environment where there were men, boys who were trying to be men, and here you were, and it was a whole new jungle. How did you
Yeah.
manage that jungle? How did you manage that jungle? What leadership skills that you had learned before or you had utilized before helped you in your journey in that jungle called IHM Pusa?
Well, I think somewhere down the line it made me fearless. As the days go by and the day of the competition nears, it is that do or die cutthroat experience that just gives you that adrenaline rush where you know that you're going to win it and you're going to walk away with a win. So I think that kind of became an inherent ability and a very innate, unfelt trait where I became fearless in taking on most of the Khadku guys in college.
So, any memories that stick out, without naming names? Any memories that stick out that this is where I held my ground? I stood my ground and did not budge for a minute.
Yes,
And
there was one group of boys which ranged across years in college, and yeah, they were quite feared, I would say, or people were wary of them. But I would still go take pangas with them. I think by virtue of having the freedom of interacting with boys from a very young age, which my parents gave me, I wasn't in awe of having a relationship with a boy. Me, boy was just, yeah, is a friend. A boy is a friend. Nothing special, nothing.
But you did break a few hearts, I'm sure. But you did break a few hearts. I'm positive about that.
I'm slowly coming to hear about those incidents. 33 years down the line.
Better late than never, as they say. Better late than never.
Yeah.
But
So
sorry, go
and
ahead.
then yeah. So and then through my exposure with the Girl Guides, we met the Boy Scouts. Then through my exposure with NCC, met a lot of boy NCC cadets. Went for a lot of camps where there were boys also. But I think the confidence that my parents instilled in me and my sister, that we can interact with boys and still know where to draw a line. I think that grounding, that education, the confidence that my parents gave us, I think it just became an inherent part of my personality. But at the same time, my leadership skills, which developed through school and college, through guides, through NCC, through various other activities, and I think being a Sardarni, it made me a bit more fearless. And when I had to interact with certain categories of students, male students in IHM Pusa, my Khadku side came out to take on their Khadku side.
So, what is that whole thing about you being, as you call it, hath na lagai? I remember that part of
Yeah.
college life, and let's focus on that. How did you hold your ground on that one?
So, when I came into college, I had already completed my graduation, so I was already in age at par with the third years. So my interaction was mostly with our third year's batch rather than with my own batch, our batch. With so that I think also gave me kind of an edge, but at the same time it was that no, you guys, you want to talk, you talk. दूर खड़े होके बात करो. Stand and talk. Don't touch me. And that kind of became a tagline where one Valentine's Day, an anonymous gift was left in the post box of the girls' hostel. And the card on that, the tagline was Hath na lai. This was in our second year, I think. So that's when I realized that that's the aura I'm spreading in college. Don't touch me.
So this was a girl, this was a lady who could hold her ground, and this
Yeah.
wasn't one who easily could have been won over. So that
Yeah.
carried on. So college ended, and where did you go? What you wanted to be a chef, and you went
Ye-
in that direction because that was
Yes,
your dream. That was your dream.
it
So you
was.
went to become a chef. Tell
I
us
went
that
on.
journey.
So I think again this Hathnalai attitude and okay, you guys, you just watch it type. It was kind of preparing me to take on uncharted territory in male bastions, because though Taj Group had offered me that if I drop my interest to join the kitchens, they will offer me their general management trainee program. I told them no. You want to offer me a kitchen management trainee? I'll join you. Otherwise, I'm not interested. So then it was the ITC group where they had only one vacancy for a girl to come on to their kitchen management trainee program, the KET, Kitchen Executive Training Program, and that they had reserved for their own Manipal College, where Yashodhara came in
I
from
remember that.
KET, as a KET from Manipal. I was very fortunate that I, through a senior of the other catering college, whom somehow I became friends with because his course mates were doing the fourth year course, hotel administration course in Pusa. So through them, I met this person, Vijay Malhotra, Chef Vijay
Right.
Malhotra, who's still at a very senior position with ITC.
Correct.
He suggested that I do my 6 weeks training between the second year and third year with Maurya Sheraton. I had done my industrial training with Taj Palace, and then Vijay suggested I do my 6 weeks training, summer training with Maurya. So he spoke to Chef Gill, and thanks to
And
his
Chef Gill was the executive chef at that time at Maurya.
Maurya
Okay.
Sheraton, yes. So Chef Gill said that okay, she wants to join, most welcome, but the only place available is Butchery and Garde Manger. So I did my 6 weeks summer training at Butchery and Garde Manger.
It is a
And
tough male bastion again because butchery is filled with,
yes,
with the rough and tough who have to
yes,
take care of cuts of lamb and cuts of chicken and deboning chicken and getting fish prepared, and it's almost like an industrial operation, mostly
yes,
dominated by men. So
yes.
interesting experience there. Interesting
Yeah.
experience.
And I was comfortable with that because while growing up, we had a poultry farm. And whenever we had to cull the chicken or prepare the chicken to sell them further, I was the one who would help my dad preparing the chicken, beheading them, skinning them,
Wow,
everything. Yeah. So I used to
wow,
do that as a 10, 11-year-old.
wow.
So when I was given the option of doing a 6 week training in butchery, it was okay. I've done it before. I'll do it. And it was very interesting because we ultimately used to go on having competitions who could deskin, debone the chicken the fastest in terms of minutes, 3 minutes, 2 minutes. And it was a skill that we had developed. And till date
So
in
blood
my
never
family,
scared you. Blood never
no,
scared you.
no.
And headless chicken
Knives,
never really concerned you. You actually loved them.
no. Yeah. Knives never scared me. So, yeah. So,
This
so so now when you see the links, the progression is going to come to where you're
Where I'm
going.
going to go there next.
Yeah.
So you spent your time in kitchens, you spent your time in male bastions in the
Yes.
kitchens because the back of the
And
house
I am one of the few people who was given a job in Maurya Sheraton kitchens without a trade test.
without a trade
Just
test.
basic, just basis Chef Gill's observation of me in those 6 weeks of butchery and garde manger. And he was our external examiner for our third year final food production examination.
Precisely, precisely. I have memories of the fact that I probably wouldn't have made it as a management trainee into ITC at Chef Gill, known that the gulab jamuns were not entirely my creation. After 33 years, I can admit to it that the gulab jamuns were not my creation. Otherwise,
Yes,
I would have not even made it there. But you're right. We were colleagues together at
yes.
ITC as well. I used to run into you in the corridors, kind of call it off and go to the army. What led you there?
Army, I think, it was a deep passion right from childhood. My father is from the Indian Navy. And I grew up reading Commando comics, Louis
Oh,
L'Amour's, J.T. Edson's.
yes,
So
I me too.
yes. So before I went on to reading Mills and Boons, my staple diet was J.T. Edson's, Louis L'Amour's, and Commandos.
Dusty Fog, Disabled Kid, if I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken. JT Edson was Dusty Fog and Disabled Kid in The Fastest
Yes.
Gun in Town, and old Bill Hardin, if I'm not mistaken. These were
Yes.
the characters over there. Wow, I didn't know that you
Yeah.
were into them.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was my staple as well at one
Yeah.
point in time. Wow.
And my biggest fight through the years with my sister used to be, why has she lent out my JT Edson's to somebody without asking me? So I think this action uh, was there, part of my nature, part of making me fearless, being turning me into an explorer. I was always exploring. Like even Maurya's in the kitchen, though I couldn't get in as a Katie, I got a job as a commie too. I joined. I said, no, okay,
Yeah,
my passion is kitchen. I'll join. It doesn't matter, whatever the rank. I'm doing what I want to do.
correct, correct.
I was supported. I was totally supported by my parents. They didn't say anything, and it was a fun time. And when I earlier said that there were some choices in front of me, either become a teacher or a doctor. So the other choice after I completed my graduation, when I was contemplating applying for hotel management, my parents wanted me to become an IPS officer. They wanted me to join the police
Sure.
because my mamaji was an IPS cadet, and while he was undergoing his IPS training, he sidestepped into IAS. So the family
Interesting.
used to think, "Okay, we already have one IAS, and if you're not going to become a doctor, you might as well become an IPS officer because you're always into NCC, Girl Guides, everything tomboy type, so you're well suited for the police." But I didn't want to join the police force because I found them very cruel.
Was it so that's an interesting angle that you bring up, that you found them cruel,
Yeah.
because they would sometimes be the aggressor without wanting to be the aggressor. Is that how you looked at it? Because tell us, where did that come from?
Because those were the days, when there was a lot of terrorism going on in Punjab. Uh, there was a lot of Khalistan, anti-Khalistan factions. There was a lot of police action against sometimes
Younger people.
innocent people.
Innocent
Yes.
people.
So I found that all very cruel. And
Hmm.
IAS, I didn't want to join because I didn't want to just sit behind a desk pushing files whole day long.
So you decided to go ahead and become amongst the first two batches from the female cadre in the Indian Army. At that point
Yes,
in time, the doors had
yes.
just been opened, and you
The doors
decided to.
Yes, the doors had just been opened. I actually didn't know that the doors had been opened because I'm not too fond of reading newspapers. It's our batchmate Sunita Dahiya, Captain Sunita Dahiya Devrani. She applied for the first batch, and then she was also in Maurya's when she had applied. So that's how the talk spread that she is applying for the army, and then I requested her to share the employment news. There was the
Wow.
newspaper called Employment News, so the advertisement had come out in that.
I did
So
not know that. I did not
yeah,
know Sunita had a role to play in your
yes,
making it there. So, yeah,
yes,
very interesting.
yes.
Okay.
Sunita had a role to play. In fact, uh, she joined the first batch of lady officers in the Indian
Correct.
Army.
Correct.
And as she was leaving the job, she had misplaced the newspaper somewhere. So the day she was leaving, she found it, and she specially came down to me. I was on shift in Pavilion Kitchen, and she came down and she handed me the newspaper and she said, "This batch is gone, but watch out for the next advertisement and apply for the
Beautiful.
next batch."
Beautiful. And this is the year 1996, 97, if I'm not mistaken.
No, this was much earlier. She joined her training in 1992, August or
Okay.
September, and I joined my training in OTA training in March 93.
So you went to Madras, to the Officers Training Academy,
Yes,
to Chennai,
yes,
as it used to be called,
yes,
to become
yes,
an army officer in the Indian Army, the second batch, with the first batch from, going to somebody whom we knew, who's a coursemate, a batchmate of ours, Sunita Dhaya. And that was the story of how you got inspired to make it to the army. Wow. I did not know that part of the history, that one of our own
yeah,
batchmates had made the attempt, and that inspired you to make it over there as well as a career choice.
yes.
Wow.
Because yes, though I was always, as they say, very OG, very particular about something. If it has to be done, it has to be done in a particular way. I was always very fussy about rights and wrongs. So people always used to tell me, "You should be in the police. You're always so kind of disciplined and always want to do everything by the book and all. So you should be in the police." And I didn't want to be in the police. And army had not opened up candidature for the women of the country till
Till that point.
1992.
Wow.
And
That is an impressive story.
yeah, and if Sunita hadn't applied, and if she was not in Maurya's, I probably wouldn't have even come to know in time I would not have been watching out for it.
So,
And
no, and so sorry I interrupted you there, but that brought a thought. That did not even hit you as for a moment that I'm going to get into a career which is so different than the more plushy, comfortable. Well, I'm not saying that the kitchens are always very plushy and comfortable. The front of the house has assumed more glamour. Nowadays, of course, with kitchens and chefs showing getting TV shows, etc., it's become a little glamorous there as well. But back in the 1990s, it was the back of the house was a tough place to be. And you chose to
yes,
move from a tough place to a tougher place. What
yeah.
motivated you? What motivated you? What was that? What drove you apart from the fact that Sunita was going there? What motivated you? Why apart? I know that you had that desire to be right or wrong, but go to the army. I mean, that is not a path that anybody takes easily. If you are in the at least in the group of females that I knew at that point in time, it's a rough and tough life.
Yeah.
So, what
So
drove you there?
it was not that because Sunita was joining, so I wanted to join. I always wanted to join, but the opportunity was not available.
All right.
Sunita kind of became the catalyst through whom I got the information.
But you had an intrinsic desire that if ever there was a
Yes,
possibility, you would go to the Indian Army.
definitely,
Wow,
definitely,
wow. And you spent
definitely.
a good number of years there. You were also all there during the. You were handling logistics. You were there into supply. You were part of ASC, if I'm not mistaken. You were part of
Yes,
the ASC Corps.
I was part of the Army Service Corps, which was in erstwhile British Army. It was the Royal Indian Army Service Corps. So,
Beautiful.
so this is the only royal wing of the Indian Army
Wow.
with
So,
the royal background to it.
what
Yeah,
was your
and
role there? What were you doing? What help us understand what did you do as the first or the second set of female officers in a corps where logistics, where supply, where service to a larger contingent, even up to Siachen was involved. I mean, you were
yes,
sending stuff to Siachen. That's the highest
yes,
battlefield on planet Earth.
yeah, yeah.
What did that involve?
So for us, it was primarily we were based in the training centers of the ASC. So that would be Bangalore, where we had ASC Center South. I was commissioned into ASC Center South, and the other one was ASC Center North at Gaya. So
Gaya.
after completing my tenure at ASC Center South, I then moved on to my next and final tenure at ASC Center North, Gaya.
ASC
So
Center South had the best dosas, by the way. I've eaten over there at their canteen, the largest dosas, which had to be split in the middle. You
yeah,
couldn't consume one by yourself. It was in Domlur. If I'm not
yeah,
mistaken, this was ASC Center South in Domlur. I've had the
yeah.
pleasure of staying there in one of the army officers' accommodations, as well as dining at the canteen, as I call it, one of the finest canteens that I can imagine. So you moved to Gaya after that. Sorry, I interrupted your
Yeah.
thought.
When the army opened induction for the lady officers, they had very few, limited, restricted roles where they could absorb us at that time because it was a totally new experience for everyone. And they didn't want to put lady officers straight away at the front. So our role, coming from the hotel management background, was uh, as catering training officers. Our primary role on paper was to train the cooks of the entire army from the rank of recruit to officers.
Wow.
So we had to handle the catering training school. So there were two catering training schools which were based at Bangalore, one in Bangalore and one in Gaya. And we had to, our primary task was to look after these schools, conduct the training, revamp the entire training syllabus, revamp the entire equipment, put up a statement of cases. But this kind of became a secondary role, and the primary role turned out to be all regular regimental duties that any male officer would do, including
Fabulous.
going checking the quarter guard at night, including Bangalore being a big station. So, in addition to your regimental duty officer, where you had to check all the duty, all your sentry posts at night. So that was a 1 week shift where
Wow.
every officer turn by turn had to do their rota. We
Wow.
also had something called the garrison duty officer, where all the army units of Bangalore by rotation had to depute one officer to go around all the army establishments every night for that 1 week and check the quarter guards of each unit, check the sentry posts of each unit, go do their stock taking and various random other things.
Wow.
So,
There was
and
no distinction. There was no
there was no,
distinction that
there
there was
was,
no
there was
distinction.
no, there was no distinction. You're well, you're not well, you have to be on parade, you have to do whatever a regular army officer is expected to do.
So Gopaji,
Whether
there was nothing lacking in you, and I'm going to go to this traditional Indian mentality. Nothing lacking in you. Soni kudi hai, good, decent looking. Who could have found a very suitable husband even at the age of 18, 19, 20, whatever it was, could have easily have settled down, traditional Indian mindset, or could have made it to a bank or an IS officer, or could have made it to something more relatively, as they say, appropriate, as they used to put it in those days, for a lady, from a decent background. Money was not a consideration. There was no force on you that you had to take a role as an army officer or a person in the Indian army because there was some kind of benefit that you were waiting for from the Indian army. This was purely your choice. A
yeah,
lady who had everything going for her
yes,
decided that I
yes,
wanted to go push myself
yes,
and kind of prove myself to be capable to stand shoulder to shoulder with any other man that was
yes,
serving in the armed forces in the
yes,
ASC.
yes.
Wow. Wow.
Uh, well, our interaction was not just limited to ASC because by virtue of being in Bangalore, we not just had to coordinate sometimes activities of our center, we had the sub area also located over there,
Right.
the
Right.
KNG sub area. So
Right.
we also had to share responsibilities for the sub area, and then being from the catering background, any major event taking place in the sub area, so we were roped in to look after the catering for that also.
So you were meeting literally brigadiers, generals, and
Yes,
lieutenant generals as
yes,
well. It was not just
yes,
restricted to ASC. You were actually getting exposed to other branches
yes,
as well in the
yes,
Karnataka and Goa command. Wow,
yeah, yeah,
that is so amazing. And you took it
yeah.
upon yourself to do it. And how long did you do that for?
So the training in OTA lasted for 6 months, where I graduated or I was commissioned as a lieutenant with the honor of receiving the silver medal at the time of my passing out parade.
Chennai is
Yeah,
close to me.
yeah,
OTA, I used to travel to. I had very many friends in OTA. I grew up in Chennai or Madras. So the
okay,
OTA is known to me very, very well. And I
yeah,
can quite picture you actually winning your silver medal because I've had the honor of watching a passing out parade there. So I can quite imagine you getting a silver
wow,
medal as you passed out. Wow. This
yeah.
is this
So
is
I
this is good.
also, yeah, again, I led the contingent, the lady cadets contingent. I was the contingent commander for that, for the passing out parade. Had a strong word of command, and then went on to complete my 5 years of short service commission.
You did your five
During,
years.
yeah, I completed my 5 years of short service commission, and the high point of that was me being inducted as the first lady officer to be inducted into the Army Marksmanship Unit, where I represented the Indian Army as a sharpshooter for two rifle events, the air rifle and the .22 category in the national shooting competitions, which were held in Delhi.
Wow.
Yeah. And the other members of my team, like it was a team event, I was too new. I had just 15 days of training on these rifles, and I completed my pre nationals with a gold and a silver in my event. and that gave the AMU, the Army Marksmanship Unit command. It gave them the confidence to send me further for the national competitions. And though the other team members, they were MNS officers, the military nursing service officers, they had been in the team for quite a few years. But it was partly thanks to my contribution to the team score that we came out with a team bronze at the nationals.
Fabulous. I did not know
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
And by that time, obviously, I had moved on beyond the shores of our country. But this is amazing to know this aspect of you that I was not aware of. So I go back to another side of it. Is your husband scared of you that you know how to hold a rifle and you can shoot
And
accurately?
that you have to ask him when you meet him.
So, and then you decided to get obviously settle down and get married,
Yeah.
and you settle down well. Knock on wood, you settle down with a wonderful gentleman. Well-to-do. You guys are well settled.
Yeah.
The transition to marriage, the transition to kids, and now you're on a different journey. You're into healing. You're into motivation. You're into
Yeah.
inspiration.
Yeah.
What is that all about, and where did that come from? What was lacking that you felt you needed to go do that, or what did you feel was missing either in your life or generally in society that you wanted to fill the gap on?
So I think my intuition and my connect to the spirit world started when I was in school. Because we used to, as kids, my sister, myself, we would gather our
Planchet.
friends together.
Don't tell me
And
you did planchet.
yes, we did the planchet. And we would have Geeta Dutt coming and singing songs for us.
Oh,
We would have wonderful experiences. In fact, in my home science college, uh, one of our classes had got delayed. So I said, okay, girls, come on, let's call the planchet. So we were sitting calling the planchet, and the teacher walked in. She said, what are you doing? I said, this is what we are doing. She said, okay, I'm going to the staff room. When you're done, you call me.
but she interrupted you and the planchet didn't get held up, because there's
No,
always a risk that
no,
the planchet can get held up.
no.
I am personally aware of a situation where the planchet got held up. So that can be risky, because when the spirit doesn't want to move.
So there were certain times when the spirit didn't want to move. So we would respectfully request the spirit to stay in the coin, and we would wrap the coin in the paper. And then after a day or so, we would open up again, and we would again offer gratitude to the spirit for having stayed there calmly and continue.
Gupaji, why didn't you ever tell me when we knew each other in college? You would have had another connection in the making over there. Huh.
So this planchet calling played a very major role during my SSB.
And you still do planchet now?
Now I don't do planchet. Now I have a hotline with God.
Wow, that is the interesting part of life that we need
Yes.
to spend some more time with you on. But
Yeah.
so you are into healing. You know how to communicate. Many people may not understand it. It requires a different, appreciation of that aspect of what we just spoke about. Help them understand what is theta healing. In a simple sentence, what is it?
Theta healing is a short form of meditation which helps you connect to the theta frequency of your brainwave, and through that connects you to the supreme power of whom we call the creator of all that is. You can call God, you can call the divine power, you can call the supreme power, the white light energy. They're different names. Ultimately, it is source. So when you're in your theta state of your brainwave, your visualization powers are maximum, and your conscious mind has dropped away. So you have stepped into your subconscious mind. When you step into your subconscious mind, all your barriers are low. When your barriers are low, you stop putting restrictions on yourself of what if this doesn't happen, what if I can't do that. You just kind of go with the flow, and you connect with the supreme power, which is what I call my hotline to God.
Beautiful.
When you connect to that hotline, then you don't need external sources to prop you up.
Right. Right. Yes.
Yeah, and this theta state, you normally on a daily basis, you enter the state when you're in deep sleep, when you're dreaming, when your visualization powers are maximum. So we are trained to enter the theta state in an awake state of uh,
During
mind,
consciousness. During
during
consciousness.
consciousness, and then connect. And it is not a very long meditation. Once you learn, like now while talking to you, I have already connected. You've not even, you may
I
know
noticed.
by
I noticed. I
a
noticed you were.
change in my
Yeah.
expression, or say something, a shift in my energy will take place. But
Yes.
this is within the first class, which is the basic level class, which is a 3-day class. We are taught how to immediately achieve this connection.
Beautiful.
And
I
once you achieve this connection, I think uh, life totally changes.
I can
It,
imagine.
it releases the same hormones in your mind, in your body, which will be released when you say you have alcohol or you consume any other
Substance or whatever, which
substance to.
psychotropic substances that
Yes,
release.
yes.
I
So
really
it,
have to get you back on a session where we can even talk deeper about it and even do a session, because
yeah,
you see, where you're going in is into the parasite of human consciousness.
yes.
You're
And
going,
everybody is innately conscious, innately intuitive. And how I like to explain this is that when the baby is born, the baby cannot speak, but the mother knows what the baby wants.
true. Wow.
How the mother has tapped into her intuition.
Into the intuition.
So everybody is innately intuitive. It is just due to the rush of life and your day to day involvement in just getting through the day, the activities of the day, earning money, whatever, looking after the family. You brush that intuition aside and you say, okay,
Wow.
yeah, I'll just deal with it later.
So each of us has the power. We just need to learn how to channelize it, tap into it, grow it, and be able
Yes,
to use best benefits out of it if you learn the right way of doing it.
yes.
That's precisely where this is coming.
Like you cannot see the microwaves or the radio signals. Similarly, you cannot see these thought waves, but they are present. So
Amazing.
whatever you think, it is transferred in the wave form.
Amazing. So, and we will obviously meet together for another session to spend time on that aspect of your personality, that aspect of your job, because I think there is immense benefit from your experiences for us and for friends who would like to benefit from it. But
Thank you.
coming to the point where we are, any regrets in the 50 some odd years that you've been on planet Earth as have I been? Anything you think you could have done better, or anything that you feel I wish I had another chance to do it while I had the time to do it?
I used to have a lot of regrets. Over the last, I would say, year plus, I have released those regrets because I have realized that every experience is something that is important for your growth.
Yeah,
So if you regret it, you are regretting your own growth, your own
beautiful,
journey.
beautiful. So, what do you feel really proud about, Gupaji?
I would say the culmination, or if you say the juice or the cocktail of all my experiences, is that one has led to another, and each has been an inherent part of my next chapter. Because without the first chapter, I would not have been able to say relish my next chapter.
Beautiful.
Now, now if you say leadership qualities, yeah, uh, they are still to the fore. I still, given a choice, given an option, I would still probably jump headfirst into something
Beautiful.
fearlessly. And now, if you want to compare an experience from my army days, I would say my sharpshooting. If
Beautiful.
you if you take my sharpshooting skills from the army, where I could do a 10x with the air rifle, and bring it into my sharpshooting skills into my healing abilities, where I can instantly zero in on what is the root cause of a
Beautiful.
negative or a limiting belief
Right.
and tackle it from the root.
Beautiful. That focus, that laser focus to be
Yes,
able, because sharpshooting, as I can see you say it, helps you pinpoint, and then you're
yes,
able to hone in on the problem area or the
yeah,
root cause, as you said, and be able to kind of surgically sort of eliminate that problem with
yeah,
your abilities now to cause healing to come out of the energies that are able to channelize. So it is about channelization and
yeah,
focusing of your energies
yes,
onto. Wow.
yes.
Beautiful.
So in 2015, I was detected with breast cancer.
Yeah.
So for me, it was not a why me question. It was not a why me situation. Why did it happen to me? There's no background of cancer in my
Family
family,
history.
either
Yeah.
side. Yes.
It could have been devastating, but your approach was
Yes.
different.
My approach was very different. I think what held me in good stead was by then I had already been into the alternative healing therapies for 3 years. I had been on the spiritual path, which is different from a religious path. I'd been on the spiritual path since May 2012. And my signs for cancer had started emerging late in 2014, but by the time I finally got myself diagnosed, it was end June 2015.
Wow.
So I straight away looked at it that if it is breast cancer, which chakra does it relate to?
Wow.
So it's relating to the heart chakra. So I zoned in on the heart chakra. I tapped into my friend circle through the healing fraternity, and I started requesting for healing. And I myself started doing healing for the heart chakra,
Wow.
whatever whatever is connected with the heart chakra. Your lungs come in that area, your heart comes in that area, your breasts come in that area.
Wow.
And and
Ye-
if your heart is in that, then again your circulatory system also gets governed by the heart chakra. so
Very
i start,
impressive.
so I started tackling it by healing the heart chakra. And in fact, the night I was leaving from Dubai for Bombay for my surgery, a friend of mine and her cousin, so we do our healing anyway. We can even sit in a restaurant and do a healing. We can do remote healings. We can do on Zoom. We can do through WhatsApp. Uh, there's no barrier. So we decided to meet up in a coffee shop, and that coffee shop happened to be very busy. But she was doing a theta healing session on me, and her cousin was simultaneously doing a Reiki session on me in the coffee shop. And we were
Two
there for
waves together. Two
2 ways.
waves
Yes.
together.
So, and we were there for over an hour. And after that, I came home, I drove home, I packed, I left for the airport. And my friends continued sending me healing. Before I went in for surgery, we do space clearing. So you probably would have heard of space clearing through feng shui,
Yeah.
but we do an energetic space clearing through theta healing also. So I did a space clearing for the operation theater for all the surgical instruments. I cleared the
Cleansed it.
space of
You cleansed it.
I cleansed it.
Yeah.
I cleansed it. And I had the Gayatri mantra playing on my phone by my bedside all through the night. And I visually transferred that Gayatri mantra and energized it so that it energetically plays in the operation theater for the duration of my surgery.
Amazing.
And uh, it then gave me the confidence. Okay, so when I went in for surgery, uh, during my mammogram and my other investigations, the lump that was detected was of a much larger size than what they finally surgically removed.
So, through positive energy, the
The
concentration
lump,
of the issue was reduced
yes,
from what it could have been. And
yes,
that is a concept I'd really like to talk about when we meet the next time, because I want you to hold that thought for our conversation. I'd like to
definitely,
do a session with you on the power of healing. I'd like to do a session with you on how can positive thought alone get better outcomes, not only for you in
yes,
your life, but even from the problems that we face medically, the problems that we
yes,
face emotionally, the challenges that we face in day to day life, where, struggles of life sometimes put you over the edge. And I want to, with
yes,
your permission, invite you for a conversation in this topic, on this topic in greater length and detail, because what you're talking is actually causing goose pimples for me, because I firmly believe in that idea, and having seen the power of it in strange ways myself,
yeah,
I feel it is important that we should investigate that side of your personality a
thanks.
lot more. But
Yeah.
in the essence of time, I've kept you on hold for over an hour and a half now, and I feel so happy that you could find the time. It's way past the hour. I think it's almost about 11, getting to 12 o'clock at your part of the world where you are, and
Yeah,
I feel bad that I've
10:48.
kept you. It is
Now, it's always a pleasure to talk to you, Rajat. And my healing journey is something I'm very passionate about, and I love to share because I feel that uh, the more I share, the more I release my fear of what condition afflicted me. And the more people hear my journey, probably somewhere somebody will be inspired
yes,
to look up
yes,
and be cheerful, because
yes,
I then
yes.
went on to take a very radical path where I refused chemotherapy, I refused radiation, and I changed my lifestyle. I'm going back to my previous lifestyle now, which I have to amend. But without even taking medicines, I
Amazing.
did not. Like, they normally recommend tamoxifen and Femara and all that. So I did not take anything.
I will tell you one thing. I've always have admired you as a friend, as a colleague, as a batchmate.
Thank you.
I really feel there's so much more to you. I knew over the 35, 33 years, I've known enough about you, but not enough to have known various amazing aspects. And this is an aspect that I'd really like to talk a lot more about, because you rightly said there is a benefit to the individual who's training, the individual who's listening, and to others who can benefit from it, because
Yes.
it could help solve other problems which medication alone cannot solve, or emotional challenges that cannot get solved because you're alone in a world where we have become nuclear families, and we are no longer in that joint family system where somebody can take the burden off your shoulders. And I
Yes.
think what you bring to the table is a amazing concept that I would like to invite you back to a conversation. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, what a wonderful hour and a half spent with Captain Gopaji Nagra. G to me, G to our friends. She's done so amazingly well for herself. We knew each other when we were 19, 20, 21. I won't give each other any dates, because that's not what I want to expose, how old she is and how young
No,
I am, or the other way around.
I'm happy to tell. I'm a very young 53 and a half, growing younger by the day.
You and I are one of the, as they say, the more mature ones from that crowd that we used to live with at that point in time.
Yeah,
But
where,
we will
where the main
we
focus was bunking classes
that was
at a
exactly where
young
our
age.
focus was. But listen, thank you so very much this evening for your time, for the positivity that you've brought to our conversation, and more importantly, the facets of your personality and your life's journey that we had no clue about, or at least I had no clue about, and it came out so openly. So I will work with you to set up some time for us to talk about the other, deeper aspects of what you bring to the table. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, if you like the show, please like us. Please come on to indreel.com and join us. And if you'd like to participate in a similar conversation, do let us know. And with that, Gupaji, great night to you. Shabak Khair.
Thank you, Ajay.
Have a wonderful,
Always
wonderful
a
evening.
pleasure to interact with you. And a big thank you to you and your team for inviting me for this show.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. And we'll catch up soon. Have a great night. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.